Well, there's a government shutdown. A lot of people are excited about it. They see it as a form of opposition. Other people are upset. I'm Cam from Bulwark. I'm joined today by my friend Lakshya. And Lakshya, I want to show you what Mike Johnson had to say about it.
President Trump has said, he could use this as an opportunity to further cut government and turn some of those temporary furloughs into permanent job cuts. Speaker, can you assess what you're expecting in terms of the job cuts and how severe they could be?
Yes, the president and I have talked about this at great length. While a shutdown is very damaging for real American people who depend upon government services, it can provide an opportunity to downsize the scope and the scale of government, which is something that we've always wanted to do. And so in a way, Chuck Schumer has now handed the keys to the kingdom to the executive branch under President Trump to do some things that we would not otherwise be able to do because we would never get Democrat votes for them. Now, Russ Vought is in charge, as you know, of the Office of Management and Budget, and it is his responsibility to look at all of this and make very difficult choices. He gets to decide now.
So I kind of figured the Republicans were going to be really hype about this because they were just going to immediately frame it as the Democrats shut down the government and try to balance this message of like, yes, we've been telling you that all of the government is bad this whole time, and that's why we had a bunch of 22-year-olds cut all of the veterans' healthcare. But then also, it's terrible that the Democrats are doing this. How dare they? Lakshya, can you just, for the layman, for the person who isn't completely a policy wonk, explain what this is, why it's happening, and whether or not we should think this is any sort of promising?
When the government shuts down, basically, right now, the deal that funds the government, right, that's expiring. And so people need to arrive on an agreement on how to continue to fund the government, because unlike other developed democracies in the world, the US doesn't have a system where you can just reauthorize what happened in perpetuity automatically. You now need the agreement of the Senate and the House in order to continue to fund the government. Problem here is, well, Republicans need Democratic votes. Democrats are not going to give the votes as they stand. And so we're basically headed to a shutdown if the two sides can't agree on a funding deal. The thing is, the question is who gets blamed for a shutdown? And to me, it's not actually that simple. If you look at it from the layman's terms, most voters agree that they'll probably tilt the blame towards Trump in the event of a shutdown, absent any other information, because the president's in charge, therefore the shutdown is his fault. The Republicans made this argument, for what it's worth, with Joe Biden as well. Donald Trump said, hey, if we're going to have a shutdown, we should have it before I become president, because then it's Joe Biden's fault. Like, he has said this exact thing. The question then becomes, what should Democrats do about it? The thing is, if you shut the government down, the argument from journalists and from the media people is that, the Democrats aren't giving their votes, therefore the Democrats are shutting the government down. And the Democrats say, you have the House, you have the Senate, you have the presidency. You don't need us. You could theoretically just abolish the filibuster and do it tomorrow. Why are you coming to us? If you really need our votes, give us something. Otherwise, we don't need to give our votes for it. And that's the tension.
Yeah, so I feel like, generally people were saying they need to shut the government down. They need to shut the government down. Then Schumer and Jeffries went into their meeting with Trump. And I think it was Schumer who came out and was like, you know what? I really think Trump might have had a change of heart. There was a twinkle in his eye when we were talking about the healthcare cuts that Americans would face. And then Trump obviously posted the fucking AI video of Schumer saying a bunch of nonsense. But again, I want to talk about this as an opportunity for the Republicans, which is why I kind of wanted to play the Mike Johnson clip immediately, because I do think anything, no matter how troublesome it's going to be for Americans, any opportunity they're provided right now to just further their agenda, regardless of how damaging it is, they're just going to take. So I want to show you one more clip of some guy that I'd kind of never heard of jumping on what the new Republican narrative is going to be here. Let's take a look.
Congressman LaHood, always good to talk to you. What are the costs to the American people of a government shutdown right now?
Well, Paris, first of all, we have an obligation and a responsibility to keep the government open. And the House of Representatives did its job. So Friday, September 19th, we were in session. We voted to keep the government open. We did that in a bipartisan way. and that will keep the government open through November 20th. So that passed. It's now sitting in the Senate. So the Senate and Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, have an opportunity to pass that today, just like we did in a bipartisan way to keep the government open. Remember, Paris, we did this 13 different times during the Biden administration. 13 times Republicans and Democrats passed a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. So why would they not support it now when they did under the Biden administration? Unfortunately, it's because of politics.
That's what we're getting here. I think he put in the captions, the Schumer Shutdown. So do you think they're going to be able to secure any wins from this whole situation? Or do you think that, like you had alluded to before, this is going to come off with people pointing the fingers at Trump?
It depends on who wins the messaging war. I will say it's not always true that the president gets blamed. When the Republicans shut the government down under Obama, they said repeal the Affordable Care Act and we'll reopen the government. They very expressly took credit for the shutdown and they were penalized. Their standing in the polls plummeted. So it is not automatically true that, the president gets blamed. However, it generally tends to happen that people assign the blame to the president. It's a bit of a dangerous game for Republicans to embrace a shutdown because, most people don't pay attention to policies. Most people don't understand what causes a government shutdown. They look at the government shutting down and they say, well, the president should do something about that.
Like the people who have the power should do something about it, right? Like the Democrats have so little power right now. It seems like this is one of the only things they can actually do. And that's part of the reason that they've been encouraged to do it on multiple different occasions now. Is it's just do something with what you've got at this point. I was kind of surprised that it happened because the Democrats have just been caving and caving and caving. So when it got announced, I was like, oh shit, guys.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Cam, I actually don't think it's going to last as long as people think it will. You can already see hints of a Democratic off-ramp here. There's a bill right now for a continuing resolution saying no changes, keep the government funded as it's funded right now. Keep that going. Are you willing to vote for it? And 4 Democrats voted yes on it. And you only need 7 Democrats to avoid, the filibuster being invoked, which means that if 7 Democrats vote for it, the bill gets passed. You can already see off-ramps happening here for the Democrats. I don't think that Democrats are actually going to succeed in the gambit here because I don't think the senators are willing to do that. Now, whether or not people think that's the right move or not, what we're looking at right now does not suggest that the Democrats are going to be willing to keep the government closed for that long.
What could we possibly get in this situation? What is enough crumbs for Trump to kind of throw the Democrats for people to say okay, let's get started again?
What the Democrats want and what they've said they want is they want the Affordable Care Act subsidies to continue. Those are about to expire. Those are going to spike up insurance costs for millions of Americans. And the Democrats are saying, if you want votes from us, give us something. And what we want is the Affordable Care Act premiums to go down instead of skyrocket all of a sudden, right? Keep the subsidies going. That is actually smart, for the record. If they do that, that is the best tested message that the Democrats have. The Affordable Care Act is the single most popular policy plank that the Democrats have on healthcare. That is incredibly popular. And if they choose to leverage that, saying, if you're going to do this, you're going to cause healthcare costs to skyrocket for people, they can win on that. I don't think they can win by just saying we're going to have a shutdown to stick it to Trump, because the country is not there. But they will be with you if you say we're going to do it to protect your health insurance.
Well, my last question for you, and this is me libbing out a little bit, is we saw Speaker Johnson delaying swearing in Arizona Representative Adelita Grijalva, presumably because she would give Democrats the vote that they need to force release of the Epstein files. Are they just going to be able to continue drawing that out, or are they going to have to swear her in at some point?
No, they're going to have to swear her in at some point. It would not be possible really for them to postpone it indefinitely. They're going to have to swear her in. And my guess is they're just going to twist some arms on the Republican side and say hey, you're not going to vote for this thing for releasing the Epstein files, and then they'll swear her in. But one way or the other, she's going to get sworn in.
Well, there you have it, folks. All right. Happy government shutdown, everybody. I'm sorry that this is happening. This is terrible, and a lot of people are going to deal with some very, very terrible things right now. Hopefully anything happens and the Democrats are able to assert any sort of power. We'll have to see. With Bulwark, we're Cam and Lakshya. Thanks for joining us.